Hello pilots, welcome back. I have returned with the player's favorite, Ashimmu, one of the deadliest ships in the game. Up until this moment I was playing around with pulse lasers. They work pretty well. They have good medium to short range. Now I've seen the Ashimmu being used with beam lasers, and I did have a very interesting idea to use those in PvP because the ship's bonuses are actually very good, and one of the bonuses will allow you to web your targets at around 29.6 kilometers. Now the optimal range for the beam lasers is around 24 to 28 kilometers, so that is well within the web range, and in most cases you are going to be safe from the incoming damage. Now this ship is overall a Blood Raider, and its shield is a little bit weaker than its armor, but the current situation in the game is that the shield tank is better, so I'll be using the shield tank for now. I received a lot of recommendation for the rigs, and I will change the rigs as you guys have suggested me to do. These are the C-type medium beam lasers, very powerful weapons. I've used those on my Phantasm back a couple months ago, and now these lasers found their way in the Ashimmu. They have actually decent tracking. I can increase that. I have maximum skills for the cruisers, so the bonuses should be maxed out. The Republic fleet will be changed with the Predator. Now let me just quickly grab my Predator Webifer out of the Cinnabal. As you already know, these two ships are my primary ships for storylines and for PvP. Okay, that's my Predator Web. Let me just casually return to my Ashimmu now. And by the way, bought the worm, and I'll be flying that ship very soon too. Okay, back in the Ashimmu. Now I can replace the Republic fleet Webifer with the Predator Webifer. Okay, and now the bonus should be a little bit higher. The range should be 26.6 kilometers with my current skills. It's 26.64 kilometers. Okay, that's pretty nice. 3 kilometers better than the Republic fleet one. And of course, the strength will be a little bit higher too. Now, Ashimmu is, of course, a vampire, and it has bonuses on the Nosferatus and neutralizers. I use dual Nosferatus, one medium, one large. As for the disruptor, for storylines you can put one more Webifer, or you can put one scrambler. A scrambler will be a lot more efficient because some interceptors can get close, and with this you can disable their micro updrive. And of course the web on top of that will slow the target even further. Can use the disruptor or scrambler in PvP too. If you are going with beams, then I recommend to use a Predator disruptor because of the range. And for the drones, I should really put a Mark 7 or Mark 9 drone here, but at the moment actually I think I'll change that later on. I don't have any at the disposal at the moment, but I'll change that. Afterburner, now I use a reactive shield hardener and one in the invulnerability field and one medium shield booster. The medium shield booster will be replaced with one large shield booster once my skills are in place. I've also recommended to use dual invulnerability fields because it increases the survivability a little bit more, although I like to use one invul and one reactive. That's my personal preference. And the rigs, like I said, I've received a lot of good recommendations for the combat rigs, and these rigs here that you can see will be replaced. They are going to be focused on shield resistance because the overall DPS as it is okay, and the ship needs to have high resistances because of the low shield volume. Will be interesting to see what will happen when the developers change how armor repairers work, and in the future this ship might transform into a armor tank when they actually fix the current, when they actually rebalance the meta. The micro warp drive here, I can't fit it. I lack power grid because of the beam cannons, beam lasers. Beam lasers use a little bit more power grid, and because of that I am unable to use a micro warp drive. With pulse lasers I can fit that, and for PvP it works better to use a MVD because this ship is not known to be very fast. And Afterburner is excellent for storylines and for missions, while the micro warp drive is excellent for PvP. And well, let's quickly take a look at the active ship stats. So far, they're mostly the same. DPS is 559.76, not bad, actually pretty decent. The resistances are okay. It has a huge hole on EM, that is something that you should note. With the reactive, upon incoming damage, the reactive will transfer most resistances to the incoming damage types, and it can actually work better in armor storylines to use a reactive because it will increase your EM resistance and you'll take less damage. But in PvP against missiles, for example, dual invulnerability fields are going to be good. Well then, let's jump in the missions. Now this mission here is one of the more difficult, I think, hard storylines. It's worth around 25 million ISK, I believe, so it will have elite battleships. And back a couple weeks ago, people told me to be careful of the elite battleships. They carry neutralizers. Some of them carry micro warp drives and they can be very fast. They orbit at 30 kilometers from you and things like that. And well, people had problems with them because of the neutralizer mostly, and because of the capacitor. Now, Ashimmu is, well, a vampire, so it will not suffer from any capacitor issues at all. And this ship, I found actually this ship very good for these types of missions because you get infinite shield boost, and that means infinite tank, and it practically annihilates the effect of the elite battleship neutralizer. So you don't have to worry about the capacitor if you are flying one of these vampires. And that's one of the good things about the Ashimmu. It is a very robust, very tanky, and a very respectable ship. Now its DPS is not well, it's not equal, it's not anywhere near the DPS of one Cinnabal, and Cinnabal is in practical use shooting down these ships faster, and you get faster clear times with the Cinnabal. But the capacitor is a little bit problematic if you engage the elite battleships. Of course, you can easily change that if you put one medium and one large Nosferatu on the Cinnabal. I use a fit like that for storylines. It works quite well. I've actually tested out I think a month ago, I tested out the dual armor rep fit on a Cinnabal, and for some weird reason the capacitor was more stable with dual armor repairs than with, let's say, one shield booster or one large shield booster. So the Cinnabal is definitely one of those ships that can do both. And in the end, depends on the mission type. You can choose if you want shield tank or if you want armor tank. For armor missions, for armor storylines, armor tank is good because you will not take too much thermal damage from the lasers. Lasers do on shield, lasers do EM damage. On armors, lasers do thermal damage. And lasers don't do a lot of thermal damage. They do some damage, they can hit decently, but it is nowhere near the damage that they do on shields with the EM damage type. So depends, of course, from mission to mission. Galante storylines, for example, are shield tank missions because they use kinetic and explosive, which can destroy armors very quickly. So you have to be careful with that. Now I'm here mowing down that battleship. In the next wave I think the elites should show up. So far the capacitor is stable, everything is stable, tank is stable. No issues whatsoever with this ship. And one thing though that I can complain about is the DPS. These lasers definitely do good damage, they hit very hard. But the rate of fire and the overall damage drop on armor and hull is definitely noticeable. So again, I think that a Cinnabal would do faster in these types of missions. Of course, a Cinnabal kind of more risky to play because of the elite battleships. So in my case here, I'll be using Cinnabal for storylines, and I'll be using this Ashimmu for these elite hard missions that are usually worth like a storyline. Like I said, this mission is about 25 million ISK, so it is almost like a storyline. And it's a good reward. You can clear these very fast with this ship, and of course it is still safer than any other cruiser. Gila can also work. A Gila is very tanky. Gila can also equip large Nosferatus and medium Nosferatus. But I think because of the bonuses and because of the overall ship's performance, Ashimmu can do this a lot more safer, and you don't have to worry about the capacitor. Now, Gila is using drones and missiles which don't use capacitor, while this ship is using lasers that use capacitor, but again, the bonuses compensate over the laser usage, and your capacitor will always be stable, no matter what you do with the ship. And let's see, 4 of these are left here, okay. Not quite sure if it's going to be one elite Armageddon or one elite, not Prophecy, one elite, what was it called? Apocalypse or Armageddon. We will see which one of these ships will be the elite. Hopefully the name will be different. In some cases it gets kind of hard to differentiate between what's the elite and what's the normal ship. So gotta be careful. They can potentially be a micro drive battleship. In that case, having the web will be very good. And of course, one very good thing about this ship is the web range bonus. Again, you can web them from very far away, and that is safety right there, because you can web them before they can go full speed at you, and that leaves you a massive advantage in PvP and of course in missions. So I can web the elite battleship, and even if they have the micro drive, they are going to be slow, and well, I have dual Nosferatus. I can keep them at range, and I can slowly destroy them without risking the ship, which is something I can do with a Cinnabal and with any other ship, because they just don't have the web range. They might have the DPS, but it's not always all about the DPS. Sometimes having a excellent tank can outlast and actually win over having very high DPS. It is something that I've learned by doing PvP for all this time, and people also did start to recommend me to change my fit, and well, that's why I have 2 of my lovely faction cruisers, one of them for storylines and the other one for PvP. So I'm definitely going to play around with these ships. This ship can be classified as one of my first tankier PvP ships. I will change the rigs into shield resistance rigs, and that will further improve the ship's versatility. It will further improve the overall ship's tankiness, and I think I'd be able to outlast and out-tank any other faction cruiser once I change the rigs. So that's going to be very interesting to test out and to find out how it will work. Ashimmu is a brawler, a ship that's good and that's excellent at close range combat, but in some cases you have to be careful on your enemy, In some cases, the ship that you're fighting can be, prepared. As for some tests that I did, my Cinnabar with 1.5 thousand DPS can cripple one Ashimmu like this. I did a test with one of my allies, and well, things were pretty close actually. In the end, it all comes down to skills, comes down to what damage you do, and well, things alike. Well, that over there is the elite. Well, I was shooting at the elite battleship for some time now. Haven't even realized it, and it will give you very nice bounty reward. I think it will be 2 million ISK. I'm about to find that out. As you can see, I was orbiting safely away from the web, and they were neutralizing me. You can see that by the capacitor, but it was stable. It was pretty stable and didn't encounter any issues with the capacitor while doing this mission. Pretty much, it was actually pretty smooth, to be honest, and I have to be only careful not to give them the 90-degree angle, because in that case they can hit pretty hard. Large guns need to have low transversal velocity, and the higher transversal velocity is, the more difficult will they have, the more difficult time will they have to hit you. So if you keep, let's say, a battleship, if you go at keep at range, and if you are not moving too much left and right, then their cannons can actually track you and hit you. If you're orbiting, then the guns will not have enough tracking to hit you properly, and the incoming damage will be very little or even zero. That's the trick to counter these large turrets. A trick that's good for cruisers, for frigates, and for interceptors. It's something that I was using for a very long time, and well, it is one of the basic rules in EVE, so I think most of you already know that, but I have to say that despite that being popular. And after that ship is destroyed, I can now focus on the rest of these ships, and as you can see, the rest of these ships are mostly very easy to shoot down, and after this enemy has been destroyed, the mission should be completed. Now, one thing that I noticed, they changed some textures, they changed some turrets, the game started to run a lot smoother, and there was actually a new bug that was discovered, I think, and people are again camping low sec gates with battleships, so be careful, be very careful about that, and please don't abuse the bug, because I heard the developers will ban for that, so yeah, that's why I fly fast ships. I mean, no one can catch a Cinnabar in low sec. That thing warps like a frigate, so you ain't gonna capture a Cinnabar with the exploit. Battleships and other heavier, slower ships, yeah, I would be careful, because those ships can get captured, and well, again, please be careful and don't get caught by this exploit. That means AFK traveling can get risky. Again, hopefully it will be patched really soon. Okay, well, the mission has been completed. Thank you for the very nice ISK reward there for a ordinary mission. And well, overall, like I said before, I am very satisfied with this Ashimmu. Very interesting ship. Kind of a change of pace, because it's not as fast as a Cinnabar, let's say, but it is way better in other aspects. All these aspects being resistance, tank, and overall PvP ability. Let's face it, this ship is not a ship that you wanna fight. You can jump the ship with a full fleet, no problem. It can't outlast a lot of ships shooting at it. Even a small fleet with, let's say, 3 or 4 players can take on one Ashimmu. But 1 versus 1 things can get spiky very fast because of the ship's performance and bonuses. Now, of course, if you are in a Cinnabar or any other faster ship, then you're not gonna get captured by the Ashimmu that easily. You have advantages in velocity, so by the time they lock you on, you are already away from web range, so you can escape. But you have to be careful. Some of these ships are literally built for that type of these types of situations. So again, very feared and a very respected ship. Rightfully so. It is one very dangerous ship, and well, so far I love it. I hate the speed; it's slow, but other aspects of it are amazing. And once everything clears up, and once everything is actually set in place, I will roll out this ship. Might replace my Cinnabal, I don't know actually. Not quite sure how things will go from this point on. I am kind of still waiting to see if they will change the armor modules so that they make this ship a viable armor tank. If they do that, then I might have to change rigs for that, for armor tanking. And that's one of the main things that's currently kind of preventing me from hunting with this ship. My Cinnabal is just a lot more effective at the job because it's fast and very little ships can actually run away. While with this ship, no one actually wants to fight it. That's the first problem. No one wants to fight on Ashimmu, and it's slow, so catching targets is kind of tricky. And I did roll this ship out in PvP. I did, and so far I did have a lot of targets run away, which would not happen if I were flying my Cinnabal. 1000 meters per second difference is noticeable, and at the moment my Cinnabal is just a lot more effective and efficient at PvP. And of course, you know me, PvP is my favorite part, my favorite aspect about EVE. And well, you know, very soon you are going to see this ship in action. As for very soon, might actually be the very next video. It depends on what I catch. So stay tuned, and you can definitely expect me to roll some very nice kills with the Ashimmu, the most feared and might very well be one of the best PvP ships in EVE. Well, and this mission also is running very smooth. Now you might be wondering, what lasers will I use for PvP? Most likely I will go with pulse lasers because of the higher DPS. Pulse lasers are excellent for PvP. Nice range, can actually outrange a Cinnabal, as well, that ship became a comparison here in my case. So optimal range with lasers 12 kilometers, optimal range with the cannons on a Cinnabal is around 2 kilometers. So things will be interesting. And of course, on top of that, the dual Nosferatus are literally going to suck any ship's capacitor dry, and once they lose their capacitor, they lose the resistance modules, they lose afterburners, they lose micro drives, they practically lose everything. And once that happens, then they are a sitting duck, as people like to say. Well, that was a very interesting result from the beam lasers. I hope you enjoyed. Stay safe, fly safe, and I'll see you next time.